WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, today in Frankfurt at the InterWhisky 2018, together with
Andy Bell from Arran Distillers.
Hey, very, very good. We've never had the privilege before so far.
Yep.
That's very good. That's why I like to be down here in Frankfurt and meet some of these guys coming in from the distillery. So I just asked before, was the distillery 20 or 25 years old? And you said 23.
Yep.
How did you have the idea of starting up a distillery way back then?
The distillery was started by a guy called Harold Curry.
Right.
Started in 1995.
Right.
Kind of a significant date because back then we didn't have the same culture for distilleries popping up and opening every 5 minutes.
It was almost anti-cyclist, wasn't it? I mean, everyone else almost closing.
Oh yeah, totally against the run of play.
Yeah.
We had a massive crash in the whiskey industry in the 1980s. 1983 was one of the worst years ever. for distilleries closing.
Yep.
So really when Arran came along and opened up in 95, it was totally against the run of play, you might say, and kind of a bit revolutionary and I guess quite forward thinking to open a distillery for the purposes of production of single malt back then was not really the done thing, and also to create something would have been a great visitor attraction so people could come and see it. Right. So the guy who had the wherewithal and the sort of the vision to do that was Harold Curry, and it was really his brainchild. Right. And here we are 23 years later, so something must have gone okay.
Exactly. And so you have a couple bottles with you right now. So you have the standard and something special. Explain a little bit about the standard. What's the typical Arran taste profile?
The reason I kind of wanted to show you the 10-year-old is because this is absolutely the classic. Right. When you want to kind of, I think of it like if you want to learn to speak Arran, this is your vocabulary. Okay? So some people come up to the stand and they say, let me try the 21-year-old or let me try this single cask. Right. And I always check if they've got their head around the 10-year-old because really I believe that if you learn to appreciate this, you'll get so much more out of all the rest of the expressions.
Maybe that's my problem. I've tasted maybe 8 or 10 or maybe even 12 different Arran so far, and they've always been okay, but nothing's been wow, all right? And so so far. But maybe that's my reason. So what would you typically say is the Arran profile?
Okay, well, there's a few things that we do production-wise, which kind of puts our stamp on the style of the whiskey. First of all of our whiskey is non-chill filtered. Yep. It's not coloured. Bottled usually slightly higher strength.
Yeah, often 50%.
Often. Or with the core range, with our 10-year-old and our 18-year-old and our 21, they're all 46. So that allows us to non-chill filter, right? So that's certainly one of our hallmarks of our house style. The second thing we often do is mix cask types. So sometimes it's easy to, just plump for one cask type, bourbon cask or sherry cask. But at Arran, generally we try to make something that's greater than the sum of the parts by adding them together. So the bourbon casks will lend a lot of sweetness, vanilla, coconut, toffee, citrus characters. The sherries will give you more spice, dried fruit, structure, that sort of thing. So with the 10, what we're doing is we're taking about 60% first fill bourbon and we're marrying that with some refill sherries. That really gives us a nice balance between that sweetness and the spice. The distillery character is very much all about orchard fruits. It's all about apples, pears, maybe a little bit of citrus as well. Even in the 10-year-olds, a lot of people find tropical fruits, fresh pineapple, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'd like to try to
convert me.
Well, I would hope you didn't need too much converting, but I think if you have somebody to talk you through it and show you what you're looking for, then actually you might find something you like.
I have never said that I didn't like it. It wasn't just not my favorite yet. Very good. So I've always had the question when you do your cuts, your hearts and your feints at the end. I had a little bit of the feeling that you're cutting a little bit longer than the other people are doing, or is it maybe shorter or just exactly the same?
What gave you that impression?
Mouthfeel, the different types of just the fusel acids I had in there and so on, but I might be totally wrong.
Well, we start our 4 shots come through at 74%. Right. After about 20 minutes that clears, but we don't trust the watch, we always check. So it drops by 1% and then we're on to our middle cut. So that's 73%, which is where we start collecting. That happens all the way to 63.5. So it's not really overly low. We have generally quite an oily whiskey anyway, so we don't need to go right into the feints to pull over those really heavy compounds. Exactly. So even when we're making our peated whiskey Macri Moor, it'd be tempting to drop the the faints,
Right.
and maybe start to drag over some of those more heavy phenolics, but we don't. We still keep it high-ish.
Very good, that high-ish.
Yep. So no.
Very good. That's one of the questions I've always wanted to ask, and I have someone ask. Thank you very much. And then you also have this, the king of your maybe range at the moment, right?
Well, it's certainly our most advanced in years. All the Arran whiskies offer kind of a different character, but they all have this really strong sort of, it's like a thread that runs through them all of Arran House style, which I think we're quite lucky in, because in today's perhaps a overly woody whiskey world, it's difficult to discern house style sometimes.
That's true.
And at Arran we're lucky and we have a strong house style, so even in our 21, where it's, well, look at the colour of it, it's more cask influenced.
It is.
Still has this Arran character through it, and yeah, you're right. At the moment, this is our kind of most premium offering in the core range. It's 21 years old, kind of a landmark bottling. It's amazing, actually. Can you believe we're talking about a 21-year-old Arran?
Yeah, exactly. 23-year-old. So that's actually almost at the beginning. Fantastic.
Amazing, yeah. So when you're drinking this, really, you're tasting whiskey from the very, very early days of our distillery. So, I mean, you walk around here and try and taste whiskey from another distillery, which is from the genesis of that company. It's very difficult to do.
1859. No, thank you.
Well, yeah. So you see what I mean? So yeah, it's quite a rare thing, and I think it's great that we're not. It's not about locking the crown jewels away in the cabinet and not letting anyone enjoy them. I mean, just recently we've been bottling some of our 95s. So we chose a few markets this year. Germany was one of them. We bottled some of the absolutely first production. Now, it would be very easy for us to lock that away in the cabinet and never to share it, but really that's not the point of the thing. So it's for drinking, and actually fantastic examples.
Very
so
good.
yeah.
And is this also 60%, 40% bourbon sherry?
46. No. So 46% alcohol, and this is the cask makeup of older Arran is sometimes quite hard to discern.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just part of this kind of the story of our distillery, because in the early days we didn't really have any money, so we couldn't be quite so particular about which casks we're buying. And if I'm honest, I think wood policy has probably come to the company slightly later on. So as the company's become more advanced, so has that way of thinking. But back in the early days, it was just a case of filling what wood you could get your hands on.
Exactly.
And actually the truth is that when you go to the Arran warehouse, we don't really we're not 100% sure of the provenance of a lot of these casks.
Wow.
So when you're asking me about the cask makeup, I can tell you that the majority of it is hogsheads. Some of those are bourbon, some of those are sherry. There are sherry butts in there too. This one also had a little bit of a sherry finish to round the whole thing off. So yeah, really beautiful expression actually. Would you like to taste it?
I would. Now, before we finish, is there going to be a 25-year-old anniversary edition? What are you going to do for your 25th anniversry? I'm sure there's plans in the drawer, but is it maybe not the right question to ask? I'm sorry.
We don't really think that far in advance. 2 years. There will be something, of course, to market. But as to exactly what shape that will take, we're not sure yet. We've got kind of other things on the go at the moment. So we're starting a new distillery in the south of the island. So a lot of the energy is going towards making sure that that's up and running.
Very complicated name, wasn't it?
Lag. Yeah. Good old 4-letter name, Legg. So yeah, that's the reason we're building one at Lag, which is in the very south of the island. It's pretty much as far away as you could possibly get from Loch Ranza. Yeah, stops the people from the north and the south fighting each other.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. The reason we're putting it down there is because really that is the spiritual home of Whiskey on Arran. That's where most of the whiskey production would have happened back in the 1830s. So it's kind of seems like a natural place to sort of regenerate that activity down there. Yeah.
All right,
so the plan is to make a heavily peated whiskey. Everything about that distillery is geared towards making that.
Right.
We have a really fat stills down there now, really big ones. Very short condensers to minimise copper contact. Downward sloping line arms, still sticking to wooden washbacks in the traditional manner. So yeah, we're really going at making a really traditional, heavy, more island style whiskey. There is an opportunity for people to get involved with this as well. There's a cask programme.
Where can we find it online?
You have to look for Lag Whiskey. Just Google that and you'll turn up the right results.
Good. All right, thank you very much. WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here in Germany, together with
Andy Bell from Isle of Arran Distillers.
It was a pleasure meeting you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.